Hello and welcome to another episode of my Productivity Mastery series. Now in this week's episode, I want to deal with an issue that many of my coaching clients have come up with over the last few months, and that is making projects complete, i.e. accomplishing or finishing those projects. Now, the main problem that we have here is the way that we're structuring the project, and essentially the way that we're actually planning out the project in the first place. Now, this isn't necessarily limited to just projects. This can also be the same with goals. Now, the first step when you're setting up a project or a goal is to know exactly what it is that you want to achieve. What is the outcome that you want? What is going to be the finished result? Now, a lot of people don't actually start there. What they usually start out with is they start with the project and then they just list lots of tasks underneath it and then say, right, I've done it. The problem with that is that you're not being very clear about what is going to have to happen for the project to complete, or indeed the goal. Now, let's take a goal as an example. Let's say that you want to lose 10 kilograms in weight, or let's say you want to lose 20 pounds in weight. I don't know what the conversion is, to be honest. Now, essentially what you want to do at that point is say, right, that's exactly what I want to do. I've got a clear vision about what I want. I want to lose 10 kilograms in weight. So the next question you need to ask is, what is my timeline? So by when do I want to actually lose that weight? Well, let's say I want to lose that weight in a nice convenient way in 10 weeks time. We're at the beginning of the summer. Let's say we want to get ourselves ready for the beach. So let's say we want to lose that weight in 10 weeks time. So that's 10 kilograms in 10 weeks. Now, if I was looking at that as my goal, if that was my goal, I'd be thinking, well, that's actually quite nice because that's 10 weeks and 10 kilograms. So I have to lose 1 kilogram a week over the next 10 weeks. Okay, so that's where I'm starting from. This is my starting gate. 1 kilogram per week for 10 weeks. I will lose 10 kilograms. The next question is, what do I have to do each week to make that happen? Now, that is where you now have to start brainstorming ideas. What do I have to do? So maybe I have to reduce the amount of sugar I'm intaking. I have to be a little bit more active every day, and I have to be careful what I eat in general. So there we have like a basic plan. Now, let's say over the first 2 weeks, you don't actually lose 2 kilograms. You actually only lose 1.5 kilograms in the first 2 weeks. Well, that means now you have to look again at the project or the goal and think, okay, this isn't working. What else do I need to do to get back on track? So that means that in the third week, you may have to actually go out for a walk every evening, or you have to climb the stairs into your office every day. I don't know, whatever it is, but you have to do whatever it takes to lose that 1.5 kilograms in the third week to put you back on track. But you need to step back and have a look and say, okay, my original plan isn't working. What else do I need to do to make this happen? And that's essentially how why projects and goals are actually quite dynamic. They are changing, and you need to be aware of where you are on your timeline as you go through. Now, let's say that you are creating a new say online course, or let's take a different example. Let's take an example, let's say you want to create a podcast. So the first question is what is the podcast going to be about? And you'd pick a topic that was related to your area of interest. And you say, okay, the next questions you need to be asking is, well, how many podcasts do I want to do? How frequently do I want to do the podcast? Well, that could be, I want to do a podcast every week. Great. The next question you're going to come along with is saying, well, what do I have to do to make a podcast every single week? Well, that's when you need to get into the details of how you're going to do it, how you're going to record it, how you're going to prepare it. But once you've done that, then you need to be looking at your calendar and saying, when am I going to schedule recording this podcast? But the idea is that you need to have a very clear idea of what the outcome is. So let's say over a period of 6 months, you want to create something like 25 podcasts. So that means over the next 6 months, you need to come up with 25 different subjects for the podcast. You also need to, let's say it takes you 2 hours to prepare and record the podcast. So that means you've got to find 50 hours over the next 6 months. And you create those tasks that you need to do to create that podcast. Now, with something like a podcast, you'd also need to schedule those 2 hours each week for recording, editing, and putting the podcast up. You may have other things that you need to think about is where am I going to host the podcast? You may need to do a little bit of research. So what you're going to then have to do is have a start date. When am I going to record and publish the first podcast? So the first part of this project, it may be a 3-week lead time. That 3 weeks is going to be your research time. But then at the end of that 3 weeks, you want to make sure that that podcast is, the first podcast is published. Now, there's a lot of things going on in there, and I don't want to go into all the details of creating a podcast, but then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be analyzing everything that you're doing over the next 3 or 4 weeks. Is the 2 hours enough? Do you need to create 3 hours? Or can you do it in 90 minutes? There's a lot of adjusting going on all the time. Projects and goals are very, very dynamic. And this is why having a to-do list manager where you can manage all these tasks that you have to do and being very clear about the outcome that you want for your project or goal, this is why it always works when you're using a system that helps you to see what you're trying to do and be very clear about the outcome. So a lot of people struggle with this, but you need to be, the real steps with this is you need to be fundamentally, absolutely clear on what the outcome is so that you know exactly what it is you want to achieve and by when. Now, during the course of the project, you're making tiny little adjustments to make sure that you are moving forward. It's like whenever you fly on a plane, although these days it's done by computer essentially, but the pilot will always program in the destination, but the wind is coming at you, you're dealing with turbulence, you've got all sorts of things going on, and the plane is making tiny little adjustments so that you land at the right airport at the right time. What I found interesting on my recent return back to Korea was that one of the passengers asked, what time will we arrive? How long is the flight? And the flight attendant asked the pilot, she came back and she said that it's going to be 9 hours and 56 minutes. And it was like, wow, you can be that accurate? But that's because the computer is programmed to get you there in that time. It's judging the speed, the height, and also the adjustments that it has to make in order to get to the final destination. And essentially that's what you're doing with your projects. And that's one of the reasons, another reason why we do the weekly review, because it helps you to adjust and to make sure that you're moving in the right direction. So there you go. I really wanted to get this one out there. It's really all about your outcome, about being fundamentally clear about where your destination is. What is your outcome? What is your timeline? When are you going to have this achieved by? And what do you have to do each day, each week to make it happen? And being prepared to be allowing the project or the goal to be dynamic so that you can make the necessary adjustments when you need to make them. Anyway, I think I've spoken enough this week. Thank you very much for listening to this or watching this episode. It just remains for me now to wish you all a very, very productive week. Thank you for watching this video. Now, if you want to take your productivity to a higher level, then get yourself enrolled in my 2019 edition of Your Digital Life 2.0 online. It is a complete, comprehensive productivity and time management course, and it's a course that will take you to levels of productivity you have only ever dreamt of before. It shows you how to build your very own C.O.D system, collect, organize and do. It shows you how to create the folder structure, how to build into your goals, into your daily to-do list. It has everything. And not only that, you will get a free copy of Your Digital Life 2.0, the book. You also get a free workbook and you get access to all the slides that are used in the course. It is incredible value. I want to see you in that course. If you are serious about becoming productivity, then please join me in Your Digital Life 2.0, the 2019 edition. Thank you very much for watching this video.